Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ringside Cinema. I am Money Mike, and today we'll begin a series of videos over the next month or so as I will look at things that I want to see in wrestling in the year 2026. It is crazy to think that 2025 is almost over, but here we are. It is almost over. So, over the next month or so, I'll be making videos of things that I want to see in 2026 in the world of pro wrestling. So today's going to focus on NXT call ups. Next week's video is going to be main roster superstars that should switch brands. So it goes hand in hand with freshening up the Raw and SmackDown rosters in 2026 alongside the NXT call ups. So you get the idea. So let's start with the most obvious here, Femi. Now, we do now know after the first week of NXT Gold Rush that Femi will be taking on Ricky Saints at NXT Deadline for the NXT Championship, and I have to ask why. Like, if there was no plans to move Femi to the main roster, why have him drop the title when he did? Obviously, he took some time off or whatever. Maybe he was injured, and that's why he lost the title. And so it seems to me it would have been better for Ricky Saints to win right before Femi was going to go to the main roster. And I think to me, I don't know what it is, but it feels like the WWE is not doing the call ups that are needed. It feels like they're slowing down. And I don't think that they should be doing that. I think they're holding some people back, like an Femi, and I'll talk about others on this list, that are main roster ready. Many people said, oh, Femi would be a great U.S. title open challenge recipient, and Femi winning the U.S. title in an open challenge, well, then good luck anyone who wants to compete against Femi for the U.S. title. But that was not the case. Instead, they put him back in NXT. Maybe they'll debut him at the Royal Rumble, but to me, I think it's long overdue. But yeah, 2026, Femi needs to be on the main roster, whether it's Raw or SmackDown. He can fit in with the U.S. title scene or the Intercontinental title scene. And obviously, if they want to wait, give it a year or so, he's instant world champion. Next up on the list, sticking with the men, ladies and gentlemen, Ethan Page. I think it's time to move him up to the main roster. I know he's the North American champion, but I love the pairing between him and Chelsea Green. I think him being paired with Chelsea Green on the main roster would be a great way to introduce him to the main roster audience that doesn't really watch NXT weekly. So they may not know who Ethan Page is. They may have seen him in AEW a time or two, but they don't know who he is, his character, and of him alongside Chelsea Green on SmackDown, I think would be a great way to introduce him to the main roster fans. Plus, these two have great chemistry together, and I kind of want to see these two stick together. Maybe they can branch out the Secret Service into a faction, and that could be kind of your new top heel faction on SmackDown in 2026. And hey, you know what? Maybe you get Matt Cardona involved, and you have Ethan Page, Matt Cardona, you get Chelsea, you got Alba Fire. Maybe you add in another person to another women wrestler to replace Piper Niven, who I believe the rumor is she may have a career-ending uh, injury, which is sad to hear if that is the case. But yeah, maybe someone else can replace Piper. But yeah, you could probably make this a whole full-fledged faction with Chelsea and Ethan Page, Alba Fire, throw in Matt Cardona, whoever. But it can work. And of course, the last man on this list is the most obvious one. He's done everything there is in NXT. He's done everything in TNA. In fact, I think his call-up should have happened like earlier this year. I think when Stephanie Valkyrie, Julia, came up to Raw after WrestleMania, I think Trick Williams should have came up alongside. And we know the history with Trick and Mello on already. So pairing Trick with Carmelo Hayes on SmackDown in a reunion would have been fun. Plus, I think that would have been a good way with the whole Miz Carmelo tag team pairing, where maybe Mello, but he turns on the Miz because of Trick Williams, and he reunites with Trick on the main roster. Thus, you turn Miz babyface, and you have Carmelo and Trick do what they did in NXT, but on the main roster. I think Trick Williams is a bona fide star. He, just like Oba Femi, is a future world champion. These two, Oba Femi, Trick Williams, they are the future of the WWE. And right now, given the ages of the top men in the top men in the men's division, I think it's safe to say we need to see the call-ups of Oba Femi, Trick Williams. You know what? As a bonus here, I'll even throw in Hank and Tank. Hank and Tank, they won the NXT tag team titles from Fraxium, and they've pretty much done everything in NXT. The Raw tag team title scene needs more bodies, and it's just not like, oh, let's just move the Street Profits over. Let's move Fraxium over to Raw. I think just maybe some more call-ups. Get Hank and Tank in there. And again, Trick Williams, I think you could easily slot him in on SmackDown. And Oba Femi could fit pretty much any brand. Let me know in the comments below, guys, if I forgot anybody. Who do you want to see called up from NXT to Raw and SmackDown in 2026? So go ahead, drop a comment below, hit that like and subscribe button, as I do produce weekly wrestling content here on this channel. And I will be going out of town next week for Thanksgiving, as many of you guys know if you've been watching the channel. Where I am a Ravens fan, I will be going to the Ravens-Bengals game. And when I come back from that, I will be live streaming Survivor Series right here on this channel. So go ahead, join me next Saturday for War Games, which I will talk about in more detail in tomorrow's video. And now for the women's call-ups. This is the most needed because, as we all know, the WWE, for whatever reason this year, was like, hey, we're going to release a bunch of women, even though we just created these new titles. We needed bodies in the women's tag team division. They needed bodies to fill out the mid card for these new women Intercontinental Championships and the U.S. Championship. And the WWE was like, yeah, we're going to release a bunch of women. And it was like, why? So I'm going to try to fill in the void with a bunch of NXT call-ups that need to happen, because the women's Intercontinental Championship scene, the tag team scene, the U.S. title scene, and even the main roster, the women's SmackDown title, main event scene, needs some fresh faces. And let's start with Jordynne Grace from former TNA Knockouts champion. That's what I was trying to say. I don't know if she's going to be down to NXT for the duration of 2026. I know she's in the storyline with Kalani Jordan, but to me, she's been main roster already. I made a video about this earlier this year. back around the Royal Rumble, I thought she was main roster ready from the get-go. I thought the WWE, it was strange that the WWE was putting all these women down in NXT, and I understand why, because they want to get them trained in the WWE way of things. But it was one of those things where just why not? Why not put them on Raw and SmackDown? And I think Jordan Grace was main roster ready already. Like, she was ready from the start. And to me, I think you put her on SmackDown, you give her a new, put her in the U.S. title scene. You know, Jade Cargill is now the women's champion. Jordan Grace, Jade Cargill. I think that would be a great feud down the line, especially if Jade does win against Bianca and Jade needs new opponents. Then I could see, Jordan Grace, powerhouse, Jade Cargill, powerhouse, two powerhouse women going at it on the main roster for the women's title. Also, Jordan Grace could fit on Raw with the Intercontinental title scene, especially once Becky Lynch, now that she's lost the title, she will eventually go back to the main event scene, fighting for that women's world title. So you're going to need more bodies, right? Speaking of more bodies, let's talk about an obvious one here: Lola Vice to SmackDown. Now, I'm not sure you guys read the dirt sheets, but it's rumored that Lola Vice and Damian Priest are a couple. And Damian Priest is feuding with another couple. Aleister Black and Zelina Vega. He's going to need someone to fight Zelina, and that's when you introduce Lola Vice. I've seen some people say Rhea Ripley, but honestly, Rhea's kind of tied up in the storyline with Io, Asuka, and all them. And I think bringing Lola Vice, again, similar to Ethan Page, being introduced to the main roster fans through Chelsea Green, Damian Priest being a former World Heavyweight Champion, the fact that the WWE is high on Damian Priest, and having Lola being paired with Damian right from the start is going to signal to fans that she is a big deal. She's immediately paired with a former world champion, as I said, so it raises her stock right away. Zelina, former Queen of the Ring, Women's United States Champion. So it does make a lot of sense to bring Lola Vice up to the main roster on SmackDown so that Damian Priest has someone to keep Zelina at bay when he's fighting Aleister Black. Now, here's one result that took me by surprise at NXT Gold Rush, and that was JC Jane winning back the NXT Women's Championship from this lady here, Tatum Paxley. I'll get to JC Jane here in a minute, but to me, I thought it was really awesome that Tatum Paxley was able to get a run with the NXT Women's Championship. I do think it was really short. I thought maybe it was going to be eventually Izzy Dame taking the title from her, but they didn't do that. Izzy Dame just ended up helping JC win back the title, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But again, now that Tatum has lost the NXT title, instantly again, because of her history with Lyra Valkyria, you put her on Monday Night Raw. Obviously, the stuff with Bayley and everything, I know that's going on, but you throw in the craziness that is Tatum Paxley, I think that would be an interesting dynamic with Lyra and Bayley, and also the fact that Lyra and Tatum have history dating back to NXT. So again, whenever this whole thing with Lyra and Bayley is over, Lyra Tatum can slide right into the women's tag team title scene. And again, Tatum gets instant credibility on the main roster by being paired with Lyra, and also the fact if she does hang around with Bayley, that's instant credibility right there among the fans. So yeah, if Tatum Paxley doesn't have the NXT title no more, I think go ahead, call her up next year, put her on Raw with Lyra, put Lyra, Bayley, whatever, put Lyra and Tatum together in the tag team title scene. And speaking of which, let's talk about who the women who just beat Tatum Paxley to become a two-time NXT Women's Champion. And I tried not to include champions, but I do feel like JC Jane is going to get a really short run. I think they just wanted to try to have her do something to get through maybe to New Year's Evil next year, so that maybe she can debut in the Royal Rumble. Because I could see her losing to, say, Sol Ruka, maybe Blake Monroe, even though she's North American champion right now. But it's one of those things where JC Jane has been down to NXT, I believe, for way too long. And I think it's time to call Fatal Influence up as a group. Put them on SmackDown. Let them be what Damage Control was a couple years ago. Let them be the faction that runs SmackDown. Hell, you could even put them on Monday Night Raw. I mean, JC Jane did defeat Stephanie Vaquer, who is your current women's champion on Raw. So there is immediate history with Stephanie Vaquer on Raw that the WWE can go off of. Now, I did say SmackDown for the reason because, number one, the SmackDown women's scene, again, the world title scene has been Tiffany Stratton, Nia Jax, Jade Cargill. We need fresh faces. I think putting JC Jane in the women's main event scene on SmackDown, I think gives us a fresh face, gives us fresh feuds. And yeah, Jade Cargill is going to be the person atop there, but I think you could have JC Jane flourish in the mid card with the US title. Plus, I think if you want to call up Fallon Henry, Laney Reed, they could be in the tag team title scene as well. So let me know in the comments below, who do you want to see called up to the main roster in 2026 from NXT? Those are my predictions for call-ups as a way to freshen up the rosters going into the new year. And again, this will be a series of videos that I will do over the next month, as I will talk about things that I want to see happen in wrestling in 2026. So comment below, let me know who you want to see go to the main roster. And again, next week I will continue the roster shakeup by talking about which superstars should switch brands in 2026. And again, tomorrow I will deep dive and look at whether or not it's time to end the War Games experiment. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been your host, Money Mike, and you've been watching Ringside Cinema.